And thank all of you for coming to Logan and Cache Valley today. We appreciate your support and are overjoyed with excitement to start our 2024 football season with the first day of camp today. I come to you with a profound sense of gratitude for how much Aggie Nation and our community has been supportive in these last weeks and days. As you know, we've gone through some hard days with our football program, a period of transition, and then the untimely passing of Andre Seldon. So we are ready to move forward, and today is a big step in that process. Our football young men have worked extremely hard this summer with Paul Jackson and his staff, and they're ready to take it to the next level as camp starts today. So we are ready. I am excited to move forward and to start a new season under the leadership of our interim head coach, Nate Dreiling. With that, I'm sure you've all made yourself familiar with Nate's coaching journey, his success as an intercollegiate athlete, and then rising in the ranks as a grad student and his various stops along the way, Oregon and Mississippi State. No, I'm sorry. Thank you. And so we're proud to have him as our interim head coach. Very proud of our staff that has pulled together, that has united behind him. They have a plan, they have a scheme, and they have a system that they're ready to execute. We know that's going to be executed with some adversity, but our young men believe, and so why doesn't everybody? Why not USU this year? So as we enter into today and the next weeks coming forward, again, I want to thank our fans who have bought more season tickets this year than our record year of 2018. I want to thank all of our donors, all of our investors who continue their support to our student athletes, because that's what we're here for. We're here for our student athletes. And I want to thank you guys for what you do for telling our story. Any questions?
There was Amanda Dorito put out a thing this Tuesday, this week. And it's a timeline. You've talked a lot about the timeline of these events and some clarifications. I want to ask you about a couple of these things.
Sure.
So it starts out July 2023 when President Cockett initiates the investigation.
An independent investigation with an outside law firm.
And there's some language in there that Amanda put in, said did not target any employee at that point, I guess. I hadn't seen that before. August 1st, 2023, President Cantwell comes on. And she sanctions continuing the investigation. Mid-August 2023, investigators informed Bovee and Anderson of the existence of an investigation. I don't know if other people were told or not. It doesn't say that. Then, but by this point, you're still not here. Is that right?
That's correct.
So was it late August that you came?
My first day on campus was August 21st, correct.
Okay. So from August 21st, there's about 10 months to July 2nd of this year, when the announcement was made of these terminations. In those 10 months, what was your role then going forward with this story?
0. I was told of the investigation after I arrived on campus as an employee of Utah State University. In all of my training with intercollegiate athletics, I realized when there's an investigation, when law enforcement agencies are involved, as an administrator of intercollegiate athletics, the approach should be hands-off. I didn't receive updates. I did not know who was being interviewed, and I was made aware of the findings when they were presented to the university president and administration.
So was the president involved in those kind of decisions then?
The independent investigation was done by Hush Blackwell, which is public, and you all are aware of that, and they conducted the investigation.
So were you notified of the decision at the same time as the president, did you say?
We were notified of their findings, correct.
Oh, the findings of the investigation. Then,
correct.
Then is the process then decisions to be made about what to do about it?
Yes, that's right.
And were you involved in that?
Correct, I was involved in that.
With the president?
With the president, with the board of trustees, and with advisement from external counsel. As you all know, the Department of Justice has lived on this campus since 2020 because of crimes within the football program. The Department of Justice has renewed that relationship with Utah State for an additional year because there has not been improvement in the culture of the football program. So I'm looking very much forward to changing that culture and to having improvements in our young men, both on the field, both academically and within the community.
When the findings were presented to you all, decisions would then start to be made. What period of time would it have been from the start of the decisions on the findings to the announcement on July 2nd?
It was a comprehensive review of the findings with global involvement, and I do not know the exact day count of that.
Weeks?
I believe so, but I would have to go back and check the records and ask our general counsel what that time frame was. It was extensive. These were hard decisions. These were people who made bad choices and bad decisions. They're not bad people. But to continue with the trajectory and to continue to have Utah State as the state land grant, as an institution that many alums, many investors, many donors are proud of, as our football team continues to grow and prosper, to be on the same trajectory is not acceptable. We did what was right. We stand by the findings of this independent investigation, and we must move forward. We must get to a point where we are talking about the achievements of these young men and women in our athletics department, that we are talking about the achievements of the great research that happens on campus, that athletics is not the focal point, but is rather a pride point as we move forward.
And one other thing, is there in your mind a need to respond to this letter signed by athletes that came out?
No, that's a freedom of speech. I believe in supporting who you believe that you want to support as individuals. That's your independent choice. And those people should have that right. That's the same reason why we're respecting the right of the individuals that are involved in these employment actions. We're making sure that we follow university policy and procedure. There's a grievance process to these hiring or these employment actions. And because of that grievance process, we are respecting those individuals. We want them to have their runway. So we will honor that, and we will not put out additional information and additional facts until that time expires and until they have their due process, because that's important and they deserve that. What else?
Jason Walker with Cash Valley Daily.
How you doing?
1069defend.com. I've heard a coach people talking. I was on the phone with somebody the other day. They are concerned about your relationship with the Hush Blackwell law firm. You've emphasized that it was independent, that you had no role in them coming to Utah State. But can you kind of explain your relationship with that law firm and what it may have had to do with the investigation here?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can check this with the independent law firm. I have no relationship with Hush Blackwell. I've never met the investigators. I've never talked to the investigators. I've not been involved with them in so much as any kind of communication. Zero. As I said before, I have zero involvement in this independent investigation. It was commissioned before I got here, and to step into that would be ill-advised. That's not who I am as a person, and that's not what I would do as a professional.
Diana, Jason Turner from the...
Oh, I'm sorry, Doug. I'm not repeating the questions. I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay. I just thought of that.
You're good. Jason Turner with the Herald Journal in Logan. I'm just curious if any of, so the list that came out on Monday, have any of those current or former athletes reached out to you? And if so, what has been the scope of your discussions with them?
Jason, thank you for your question. Did everyone hear that? Yes, I've had 3 student athletes reach out to me, and they re-emphasized the fact, similar to some of their social media posts, that they did not give permission for their names to be on this letter. And I'll just leave it at that. Again, these are young people. We should be focusing on serving young people, not exploiting them, not using them to a greater good or to highlight anyone's profession or career. If you choose to do that, that's great. That's fine. That's your independent decision. And I am not involved in that whatsoever. But they came to me, they sought me out and apologized because they did not give permission for this.
Diana, Trent Loden with the Deseret News. I know you weren't here when the investigation was initially commissioned. I'm curious if you can give us any clarity as to why Hush Blackwell was the law firm chosen?
I cannot speculate on policies, procedures, actions that happened, but how I got here. I can tell you that Hush Blackwell is a national law firm that does a lot of work with intercollegiate athletics departments at very high levels at the Power Five and within, I will say, group of five institutions. They are very active in investigation space. They're very active in helping to advance institutions and universities with athletics departments and institutional goals. And so that's what I know of them as a cornerstone of what they do legally. But I can't tell you, I can't speculate on why they were chosen. Sorry.
Diana, Alex Ahar with KSL. You mentioned the DOJ involvement in the last several years. You mentioned that over the last several years also there's been a lot of issues with the culture, and it would appear that the actions of the department to let go of the coaches and the administrators that were involved in their subjects of the investigation would be maybe step one of changing the culture. What are the initial next steps in ensuring that this culture is changed the way that you want it to be changed?
Yeah, and thank you for your question, but let me just be clear. It's not just how I want it to be changed, it's how the institution, alumni, and the community need the change. It is getting and modernizing our athletics department to current social standards, applicable, acceptable behaviors, and being in alignment with the values of this community and our institution. This is not what I want. This is for the greater good as one institution. I just want to be clear with that. I am in alignment with that because that's who I am as a person. That's who I am as an administrator. That's who I am as a parent. Please realize that young people's lives have forever been changed because of some actions of some people. We cannot simply just cast that aside and turn a blind eye. Now, as next steps, as we move forward, we'll continue with our education process with our head coaches and our student athletes. We're having a much more engaged process with our Title IX and Equity Office. They are meeting with all of our coaches individually to establish relationships so people realize what they need to do, when they need to do it, their timeframes, and it's a relationship. It's not just a transaction. No one has any fear or concern, and they make sure that we are doing everything in accordance with our university policies, our state policies, and our federal policies. When you are a Title IX reporting official at a university, that is a job that has severe and specific parameters, and it must be taken seriously. As we move forward, we're going to have some more signage that will be present for our student athletes, and we will have I'm going to call them enrichment and refresher. So we're not just doing it once a year, that this will be a continual year-long process every year as a coach, as an assistant coach, as a staff member, and as a student athlete.
Are you having to change any of the training materials or any of the ways that you deliver the training in order for it to be either more modernized or something that maybe administrators, coaches, players will be better equipped to, I guess, remember it for the year and years in the future, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I love that you asked that question. It's really important to not only be applicable and relevant, but be responsive. And so working with our Title IX office, there is that renewed energy and that renewed approach. But I really can't speak on how training was done because I'm just coming up on my year anniversary on August 21st. So I don't have a good historical or a memory bank that I could tell you what's been adjusted and how we made it more relevant.
Patrick Mayworm from the Ag Chef. I'll ask a football
Hi,
question.
Patrick. How are you? Thank you. I'd love to talk about football.
What are you expecting of Coach Dryall this year? What do you need to see from him in
Right.
the role that he's now filling?
So first and foremost, Nate brings a tremendous toolbox to us. And he has made some adjustments with our current staff, elevated some individuals that have shown promise, that have a toolbox, that have shown talent for new responsibilities. And those individuals are excited. They have a new pep in their step and almost feel like, hey, this is mine to own. Why not me, right? And then with that, we've filled in some gaps and we strengthened some links in the chain with some new additions to our staff. Nate knows that our expectations, yes, we would like to be better than 500. But this is a whole comprehensive process. We want to see advancement and progress on the field. We want to see that our student athletes are prepared. They may not be perfect every time at the scrimmage or for every down, but we want to make sure that when they come to the game, they're prepared. They know what their roles are. Next, we want to make sure that they're achieving in the classroom. As you all have been recently made aware, we've had a huge academic slide with our football program. Yes, you can look at the transfer portal, but I think you need to go back and look at the DNA of who transferred and why did they transfer. Did they want to transfer or were they asked to transfer? So our academics need to improve within football. Our academic staff realizes that and our football staff realizes that. There's new coaches control meetings and there's efforts made so that we can show some deliberate and intentional progress with that this season. And then third, there's a community component. We have to be good citizens in our community. That doesn't mean that one person gets to have a bye. Every single person needs to be a good citizen in our community. I want our student athletes to be as accountable as our coaching staff. I spoke to several of our football players last night because I want to be accountable to them. If they have questions, I'm here to answer them for them. We all have to march to the same beat. And if we're not arm in arm in doing that, then we won't be successful. I have full belief that we have given Nate the tools and he is responding every single day to reach and rise and to make us better.
This is kind of a follow-up to that, but what would it take for Nate to have the interim tackle moved?
A really successful season.
Any specific with that or no?
No, I think that's good right now. I mean, today's the first day of camp. And I don't want to tell you something that's unrealistic. I think every person, as you work together as a team, you figure out what's the reality and what are the expectations and how do we work together to achieve that. We're going to work together every single day to achieve that. Communication is going to be key. Trust is going to be key. Having those young men respond, come to the facility every day is not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. But having them respond, having them eager to get better and push each other, be a brotherhood, love the person to the left and thank the person to the right, that's going to be a successful team. You guys have covered sports long enough. You know a player-led team is the most successful team. We have proven veterans, proven new leadership. We have a lot of talent down there and they can't wait to get after it. I promise you that. They are ready to go. Of course, we need some fine-tuning, a little bit more work, but they're going to be ready.
You mentioned
One last question for Diana.
You mentioned the academic slippage.
Yeah.
And then you said something about the academic staff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an academic staff and there's a football staff.
Correct.
Who's more responsible for the slippage?
No, it's a partnership. Let me be clear. This is a partnership. Our football student athletes work with their position coaches every single day and our head coach and our football staff. And our academic staff is needed to provide them the resources and the tools they need to be most successful. Whether that's a tutor, whether that's an academic advisor, whether that's an academic mentor, we have those capacities to provide to our student athletes. And we need to make sure that we are working arm in arm, step by step, that if we have a student athlete at risk, that we are giving them extra services so that they can be most successful.
Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys. Let's talk about some football.
Excited. Appreciate it.
For sure, sure thing.
Let's do it. Thanks for coming, guys. Obviously, Coach Dreiling here. So very excited. Kids got back a couple days ago. We gave them some time off last few days of summer to go home and get rejuvenated with the fam before we come back and start this journey together. As you know, there have been twists and turns all over the road this summer. But one thing has been constant, and that's our kids' attitude. We've gotten closer together with every single day, it seems like, and really leaning in on each other as we handle things. There's been a bunch of adversity, but in that, man, that you can already see, right, what are these kids going to show and what's going to come out to this world once we come out swinging on the first game. So right now it's just getting back to the little things as we gear up for fall camp and making sure that we take care of us, and it's not about an opponent, but it's just about us getting better, and that's how we'll handle things both on and off the field, right, making just a 1 degree better every single day. So let's open up some questions.
Coach Jason Walker, Cash Valley Daily at 1069thefan.com. Just want to ask about how the team has done as far as going through recent adversity with Blake and obviously with Andre Seldon as well. How have you seen the team try to rally together and make it through this adversity?
Yeah, that's a good question. How have we rallied together? The adversity's been strong, right? You're on point. One thing we did put in place right away was a leadership council to making sure not necessarily just the seniors on the team, right, but voices of every class, walk-ons, everybody. My platform is to serve these players, and I don't know how to serve. I don't know what they need. So it's been a lot of listening to understand from my chair and making sure I give these guys everything they need to be successful, both on and off the field. That being so, through those meetings, we've come up with great stuff as far as team building events and things like that. But honestly, it's just unsanctioned stuff where we're just hanging out around each other. My office is always open. One thing you guys will find out today as you meet more of these position coaches, like it's a very genuine family here. Kids love being around, so they're up here nonstop. I would argue probably more than anybody in the country, not doing football, but just doing live stuff and hanging out with the coaches, and that's been huge for everybody.
Coach Darling here, Franson with 106.9 The Fan. The process of assembling that staff and reassigning or changing roles with the staff that was here, what was that process like for you, and how did that process develop?
Yeah, Eric, right?
Yeah.
Slow. So I talked to a bunch of coaches when I got this job, right? And the biggest mistake they said you make is you try to move too fast. You don't know what you don't need necessarily. You don't know exactly who the best options are. So I was not rushed at all. The best part about this was I was able to bring my whole defensive staff with me. So every single one of those guys I've coached with at some point, I know are phenomenal human beings and they're phenomenal teachers. That's why I hired them. So there wasn't a huge concern on needing to get someone in right now defensively. I'll continue to call it. So that'll look the same and as we move forward. And then offensively, as you guys know, it has been very successful here. Like I told the players, my first order as a head coach is to stay out of the offensive way. So how would I give those guys the platform to be successful? That's promoting Kyle Cefalo to offensive coordinator. I think as you guys have probably been around him, not only is he one of the best recruiters we have on the team, if you look at his position room, right, but he's been in the system for 10 plus years and he's essentially the brainchild of that offense. So he's going to have a very exciting year. And I have all the confidence in the world with him, as well as elevating Cooper Bassett from O-line coach to co-offensive coordinator as well, offensive line coach. Some additional staff members that we brought in. Defensively, one of my favorite people in the world, Dave Wiemers. He's a senior analyst for the defense. So I actually played for Coach Wiemers at Pittsburgh State when I was playing. I went back to Pittsburgh State and I coached underneath him. And then I got moved to defensive coordinator while there, and he got moved to offensive coordinator at Pitt. So we've known each other for a long time. I wanted to make sure for these kids I get the right people in this building, right? And that has nothing to do with football. That has everything to do with character and how they've raised young men. And that's how Dave is going to fit this role for us. And then on offense, Troy Morrill. So those of you who don't know, Troy was the head coach at Butler Community College for 10 to 15 years, up until 2014. He won 3 national championships. He's like 155 and 20 or something like that as a head coach. So one thing I do have a lot of confidence in, what I've known I've been doing for a while, is managing staff and managing players. I wanted to make sure I wasn't blindsided by any head coaching stuff, that just the fear of I don't know what I don't know, right? So both of those guys have not only been head coaches but successful head coaches. So they will help making sure that we stay in check on that regards, as well as helping with the academics and community involvement will be a huge piece for them as well.
Hey, Trent Wood with Deseret News. You mentioned you don't know what you don't know about being a head coach. What have you learned so far? What surprised you of being the head coach versus being coordinator?
Yeah, Trent, what is different about being a head coach, right? The best thing I have done, my agent is connected with a bunch of FBS coaches. I've probably annoyed almost every single FBS coach in the country to make sure I do have the answers. I may not know them right now, but I want to get everything before the players ask. So there's been a bunch of research since I got the first call from Diana on what to expect, what not to expect, right? Little things, how to handle certain situations that you're just not used to at a coordinator role. Coordinator role, you go from a position coach in this profession, managing 10 kids, to a coordinator, you're up at 50, and now a head coach at 150, right? So it is a lot more people, but it's a lot wider deal as opposed to just football. So learning how to handle the ops department, the community involvement, right? That's been awesome so far. That's why Dave and Troy bringing them in has been huge, as well as our chief of staff, Rachel Phillips, who's been the right-hand woman for Gary Patterson and for Coach Kill, her last 2 stops before following me here. So we have the best people off the field. There's not a doubt in my mind. And they've been tremendous for this as well.
Coach Alex Behar, KSL. The dismissal of Blake and others has been talked about as the first step of resetting the culture of this program. As the head coach now, what do you kind of want to do as one of the stewards of that culture in order to be what the administration wants it to be?
Well, I think the first thing is stability, and that's not just winning football games consistently. That's for the fan base. That's for the community. That's for academics. You know, if you just look at Utah State, there's upswings and downswings. So how can we just keep the trajectory going where we want? Ultimately, that's getting the right people in here, and that's getting the right players in here. We have an unbelievable foundation of student athletes that want to be successful, and I think you guys will see with the players that we brought in, even since post spring ball. It's two characteristics: great football players, but even more importantly, great men, right? So that's how we're going to, one, continue to improve this culture, but also improve our image drastically across the whole state. Secondly, it goes to how we recruit. My dad was my high school head coach. So, like, my whole life, I've been dealing with high school coaches. Half my friends are high school coaches. So that is going to be our lifeline in recruiting as well. And that starts with this state. Like the state of Utah, right? We had 48 guys go Division I football last year. So that number is anywhere from 25 to 45 typically on average. So there's no reason we shouldn't have 10 to 15 players every single year. And if we don't get guys, because maybe they do get offers, we get them when they come back home, and they want to come back to close to Salt Lake or stay in Logan. But it's those type of people that we know have the values that we want, not just on the football field, but that the community is going to be proud of.
Coach,
Ryan-
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Jason Turner from the Herald Journal. I just wanted to ask you, do you have anything specifically in mind to honor Andre Seldon throughout the course of the season?
Jason, you the man. I'm going to tear up. Andre, this kid, I wish you guys would have been around him. He is one of my favorite people ever. I won't even talk about what type of player he was, but he is a just kid that is always smiling, always loving. I told him at his ceremony we had here on the field for this family last Thursday. Every single conversation with me and Andre started with one of us making fun of each other, and every single conversation ended with a hug, right? And that's the type of relationship I had with him, and that's the type of relationship we hope to have with every one of these kids in the building. So he's meant so much for me. But that being said, me and 3 other coaches are hopping on a jet right after this and flying to his funeral back in Detroit tomorrow. So we had to adjust practice and meetings and everything. So practice got moved to tomorrow night so we can make it back in time. So fortunately, one of our donors helped us out on that. And we'll continue to honor him. You'll see a bunch of different patches and stuff like that the coaches are wearing throughout the season. But thank you for that question.
Coach Craig Hislop with KBN Radio. Did you have to do a recruiting job with Coach Morrow? He's been out of football for a while, hasn't he?
I had to work my rear end off, and not that he didn't want to get back in, but he was at an unbelievable situation at his current job. He was help running a multi-million-dollar organization on the East Coast out of Boston and being very successful outside of the football world. But I could tell with my first phone call to him, like, this was our guy for sure, and 2, we had a good chance. The reason he got out of football was to spend more time with his family because he was missing too many games. And now that his kids are grown and not involved in college or high school athletics, he has more time on his hands, and he's been itching to get back in. So we had 3 or 4 conversations, and I made sure that I was going to do whatever I could to get this guy in the building. You'll see him walking around, but he's about as good as it gets. And not even talking about winning football games, but as far as developing a young man, like his last job, I called him 4 days ago before he took the job, and he was teaching a leadership course to his entire staff there. So he does way more than win football games. He develops people, and that's what we need more.
Nate, it says here that you're the youngest coach in FBS. I'm just curious how that makes you feel.
That being the youngest coach, I know it makes my mom feel proud. If you look at her Facebook page, you're going to see Utah State Aggies all over. She's got a fan club for Western Kansas Utah State Aggies fans. So I hope she's not watching this. She's over the top, but they are awfully proud, and that means a lot. Well, I mean, I honestly don't care too much about it, right? I just need to make sure that that doesn't mean that I don't have enough wisdom to be successful for these players, and that's why hirings are important.
What did you do specifically to get 40-some new people, players incorporated into this team quickly?
Yeah. How do we get the turnaround so fast to get these players bought in? is the most important thing, right? And that's ongoing. So majority of them have been here this summer, and that's what Diane talked about. Like Coach Paul Jackson is absolutely phenomenal. One, with how he develops these kids, but two, creating like competition environment. We split guys into teams, so now you're not always hanging around the same positions or offense, defense, but getting them around other people. As you guys, I'm sure know, like the most talented team doesn't always win, but it's a team that's going to fight the hardest for one another. And that's what summertime is for, and that's what PJAC does best. And then ultimately, we're going to have so much things for fall camp because there are some new additions. Even the last couple of weeks, getting these kids around, more familiar, not just offense and defense or position wise, but you have to know every single kid in this room if you're going to be successful, and we'll make sure we handle that.
Coach Dreiling, you alluded to at Mountain West Media Day some more New Mexico State transfers coming in. I see they're officially on the roster now, Gabe Peterson and Torrin Union. So what can you tell us about them and why they're a good fit for you?
Sure. I'll start with Gabe Peterson. So Gabe, I recruited. I was his only offer at FCS, Southeast Missouri State. Then I took the job at New Mexico State, and I was his only offer in the FBS at New Mexico State. So he is a Kansas kid. He actually played my dad's school. My dad called me right after the game, said, "You got to offer this kid." So I've known him and his family for a long time. But he is what Aggie Nation wants. He is someone that is extremely tough, right? And ultimately is a phenomenal student and is going to walk around with a smile and make everyone proud. So he is a player that started as a true freshman at New Mexico State, then had an unbelievable sophomore campaign, left New Mexico State after we all did. And luckily I was fortunate enough to get him here not too long ago, but he's going to be a great addition to help with the depth for that outside linebacker room. And then Torrin Union, Torrin, if you guys start talking with him, you're going to have a hard time of walking away because this kid he's going to talk his jaw off, and you're going to love everything he says. He is so great for the locker room, first off, because how he lightens the mood. He always has a huge smile on his face, but then athletically, he's going to play that nickel position for us, which is one of the hardest spots in all of football to play. You got to fit the run, you got to cover someone man to man, and you have to know just about every technique in the book. But both of those guys, will have to come here and they'll have to earn their spot. I didn't promise them anything, but at worst, they're going to provide depth and they're going to make sure the locker room is where we want it to be.
I think it's piggyback off that question. You got a couple of other guys coming with you from Mexico State, Gabe Negas and Jordan Vincent.
Yes.
Anybody else? What can you tell about these guys that you've coached before?
Sure. New guys that came with me from New Mexico State. What can I tell you about them? First off, if I brought them from New Mexico State, that meant their character is unbelievable. And so like with Jordan Vincent and Gabriel Iniguez, those guys have been here for 6 months and both of them were top 10 in captain voting. Right. And not that we didn't have unbelievable leadership here, but those guys just carried themselves a different way. Jordan was a all conference player for us, safety at New Mexico State. One of the toughest kids I've ever been around from Chicago. Awesome human being. That's going to also help that safety room. That safety room is very top heavy with returners and older players and a bunch of young guys that we need to make sure that they can go in. And that's what he's going to help a lot. And then Gabriel Iniguez may look very intimidating when you stare at him, but he's a big teddy bear. Don't be scared of that guy. He is phenomenal though. He's the heart and soul of New Mexico State. Him and Andre both were. One thing about him, he is going to outwork whoever it is. And that's what I want. I want tough kids who are hardworking, who have the same core values that I believe in, right? And that I want this program to represent. And that's what all those New Mexico State guys will have to do. But keep in mind, no one's handing any jobs out. They're earning everything they get.
What would you consider a successful season?
Successful season. On a personal level, if it's 6 months from now and I'm looking back and I can honestly tell myself I gave these kids everything I could for them to be successful and serve them how I want to serve them and get this program and this culture at the top level in all of college football, like that'll be success. And then on the field, there's no reason that we shouldn't be competing for a Mountain West championship. I got brought in to help fix a defense, and I think you guys probably attest. If you guys had a great defense last year, you probably making a run for the Mountain West championship. So we don't feel like offensively, they finished 19th, I think, in the country last year in total offense, and there's no reason that shouldn't be top 10 with who we have and the quarterback we have back with Spencer. And then defensively, right, we brought this staff in and a couple players, but the foundation is here with the kids, and they're all believing in. And one thing we do on defense is we don't talk necessarily. It's not what you do, but it's how you do it. And for my expertise, we spend a lot of time on the how, giving these players the tools to be successful. So we're going to fix the defense. There's not a doubt in my mind. The offense is going to roll like they always have, and we're going to get back to competing for Mountain West championships. That'll be a successful year.
How much of fixing the defense is fixing the issues they had last year or implementing what you want?
So that's an unbelievable question. How do you fix the defense in a hurry? So one of the main reasons I took this job, it was very similar to my New Mexico State job. When I got to New Mexico State the year before, they were ranked 127th in the college football, right? And there's 134 teams, so pretty close to dead last. So one thing that was similar about this place was they were ranked, upper 100s. But one thing I knew for sure, if you have been that bad, you are going to soak up information and knowledge and want it. You want to be a sponge, because two things happen. You get tired of people telling you how bad you are, right? And then you have a huge chip on your shoulder for the exact same reason. So as soon as I walked in the room, they were all ears, and they've been unbelievable. So that's more so like, they had plenty of talent last year, right? We just got to make sure we spend the how time and give the kids the tools to be successful and get the confidence rolling. There's no reason defensively that we shouldn't be the best or one of the best defenses in the Mountain West, and that's our goal. We're not there yet, and I let the kids know exactly where we stand when I do meet with them. But we are getting closer. We're making huge strides. Fall camp is going to be fun. One thing you guys are going to see about this defense is that we're going to have unbelievable depth. And you have to. If our offense is going to go try to score 60 points to win the game, right, you better have two sets of starters. That's why fall camp's going to be fun in building that depth as well.
What's the depth at running back?
Depth at running back is good. You got Razul, who's coming back off of close to 900 yards or so, maybe a little over. You got Robert Briggs. Those two will kind of be the 1-2 punch that we have, and as well as brought in a couple JUCO kids. So with that offense, we're mainly a one-back system that goes fast, so they don't sub overly out. We do need two tailbacks, and we feel like with those guys, the best part about it, both of them can take it the distance any play. Not to mention who you have out wide at wide receiver with Jalen Royals. And I keep talking about Spencer. The spring he had at quarterback is unbelievable. And if this offense was successful last year, he is going to blow the roof off this thing.
Hey, Coach RJ South, Sports Radio Network. You've done a heck of a job, to keep the kids from hitting that portal. You do lose Michael Davis, but is there any other expectations of losing anybody else, or you pretty much signed us to everyone to say?
One thing that's been awesome is because these guys it's college football. You can go wherever you want. Seeing how much they love it here. Right. Some people at media day thought it was going to be a mass exit and everyone's going to be gone. You can't replace anybody. But I think it's a testament to how we treat these players. Like, they don't want to go. Like, we've had guys receive offers and money offers, NIL, all over the country, and they've consistently turned them down because of how they're treated in here, how they know they're going to be developed on the field, but even more so off the field. So I think it's a testament to this coaching staff being able to keep this thing in place. And are we going to lose another guy? I don't know about hypotheticals, but I do know the players are here, are extremely happy, and they're ready to work.
Coach Patrick Mayhorn from the Ag Show. You've mentioned a couple times, they're not there yet, but you'll get them there. What tells you that they're there? What tells you that a team is getting there or making that process?
Yeah, Patrick, good question. What tells a team that they're there and And I tell them all the time, if I don't have to say anything at practice, we're there. If I'm still coaching people, right? And people, don't get me wrong, people make mistakes all the time. My wife still always yells at me, right? And we're 6 years in. But if I can have a senior or a starter fix that player before I can, then we're there. If I'm still having to correct because those guys aren't helping the people below, then we're not building the depth that we need. So as soon as you don't hear me talking at practice, right, we're pretty close. Good question.
So what can you tell us about the linebacker position? You got a lot of returners at safety. There's some returners at defensive line. There's not a whole lot of experience, at least from last year, returning in that linebacker room. How do you expect that to kind of play out with some of the guys you got there?
That is the biggest question mark on paper, right? Let's talk about who we got coming back first. All right. That was on the team. So we got Big Max. Max, as you guys know, tore his ACL in the Iowa game. But he is way ahead of schedule and he's going to be practicing here in the next couple of days, coming off that knee injury. And we feel like he should be one of the best linebackers in the Mountain West. On top of that, you have Bronson, you have Cole Joyce, you have JP, you have a bunch of guys that has played a bunch of snaps, maybe not in that starter role, but in that reserve role, right, and building depth. So we have that whole crew coming, and then we do have a bunch of additions. We got Clyde Washington. Clyde's coming from University of Purdue. He played 350 snaps last year in the Big Ten and meaningful snaps. Like he started at Sam linebacker for him. He wanted a bigger role. I've had great relationships with Kevin Kane, their defensive coordinator, and he said, "You're absolutely crazy if you don't take this guy." And he's been phenomenal so far. You also have John Ross May. Awesome story because just like me, John was at a Division II school, one of the best D2 linebackers in the country last year, filled up the stat sheet, and he's been phenomenal this summer, as well as John Miller coming from Oregon State. So 3 linebackers who have all played a bunch of football, have a bunch of production, but probably even more importantly, are phenomenal leaders and very smart kids. At linebacker, like I was slower than I'm sure all of you guys in here, and I ended up making a bunch of tackles, not because I was fast or athletic, but because you're a smart player. And that's what we brought in. And that's what Coach Bobby McMillan, our inside linebacker coach, that's what he develops, I think, better than anybody in the country is football IQ in that room. And that's going to be a shining point. That's a huge question mark right now, but it's going to be a shining point by the end of the season.
Both of the offensive and defensive lines look bigger. Would that be true?
Yeah, I was going to question your eyesight, but finally something that makes sense coming over there. That's exactly right. We need to get longer. You with me? Football is you don't have to be tall necessarily. You do have to have long arms, right? It's like when you put your head on your little nephew so he can't punch you type deal. So trying to get that mindset and develop what our prototype players look like and staying true to that model. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to take a short player, but we won't have a room full of exceptions is one thing that we try to stay true on. And length is a huge thing for us moving forward.
Coach Dreiling, Eric Krantz with 1069 The Fan again. You kind of talked about some of the players that have come from Division II or FCS and kind of moved up, and then even from a place like New Mexico State to Utah State, where it is we'll call it a bigger conference,
Absolutely.
if you will. And you've experienced that personally through coaching as well. So how do you help these players make that adjustment and get ready for arguably what should be a bigger challenge playing at this school in this league?
Eric, how do I help players adjust that are moving up a level? The first thing I do is I stay out of their way because they know they're not going to be successful until they have a voice, and you can't have a voice until you outwork people. You with me? And that's where our homework comes in. If you look at our portal success rate from New Mexico State, if we brought a kid in, he was going to be successful because of our background checks. One, we're going to bring in the hardest workers that just left the school. Like you could be talented, and if you're not a hard worker, you're not going to survive here. That's not the DNA, and that's not the product that we want to put on the field for this community. So I let those guys outwork people. I let them grow the voice, right? And then we start molding. But that's the order. Those guys know when they come in, and I tell them all the time when I'm recruiting them, if someone tells you you're going to go be a starter, like you should go run away fast. Because how many people is he telling that to? All I've told every single one of those guys is that we're going to develop you both on and off the field better than anybody in the country. And I truly believe that, but they still have to earn it. So if we bring a guy in, you'll know that he's a very hardworking human being, and they're going to earn the right. But ultimately, we're bringing him for a reason to be successful as well.
And just to follow up, as a person, as a coach, just your relationship with Blake Anderson that brought you here to Utah State originally.
Mm-hmm.
What was that relationship like with working with him, at least in the 6 months or fewer that you had here on campus working with him?
Yeah. So Blake has been nothing but phenomenal. One of the reasons I took this job, as I'm sure you guys know, my wife was going through breast cancer last January when I was kind of on the job market and looking around. And obviously with Blake's pass, I knew he was going to be very forgiving and letting me miss stuff that I'd have to miss to be there for my wife. But he's been phenomenal for me. And it was that 6 months was very good for me and Lex, and he allowed a lot of stuff for me to be away. So I am very appreciative of him. But at the same time, our kids know, like, you don't know the twists and turns in life, but you do know that tough people rise to the top. So we got to lean into each other and be able to make a run out of this.
Nate, is Spencer QB1 right now? Do you consider him QB1, or how not contentious?
Sure.
How much competition is there at the quarterback?
Yeah, is Spencer the quarterback? Yes, he is quarterback one. I truly believe that he is one of the best throwing quarterbacks in the country. And I think here in a couple weeks, you guys will see and say that as well. I do love that whole quarterback room. Just like I met with every single quarterback and every single offensive player, but I told the quarterback the same thing. Like, you, in my mind, win football games with a great defense and a tough quarterback. And whether you're talking about Bryson or CJ that came over from Boise, all of those guys, like, the team wants to play for and wants to work for and will do anything for. And if you have that case, whether it's the first quarterback or third quarterback, then you have a chance to be successful. That's why that quarterback room is going to be fun. Even moving forward, the following years, you are going to have a tough guy at the reins, and that's what I'm excited about.
Nate, traditionally, the last couple of years, this program has been pretty penalty prone. Is a good way to put it.
Sure.
How do you feel about penalties? What's your approach on them? How do you feel about discipline to limit them, or is that not important?
So the biggest thing for me is what are these penalties? Are these unsportsmanlike fouls? Like, no. That comes down to controlling your emotions. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control anything, right? So it's important that how we practice and how we prepare, we put a lot of strain on our guys. So when it comes to game day, life is easy. If we're having to do stuff extra during the game that we couldn't handle in practice, emotionally or physically, that's when people get out of line, right? And that's how that stuff shows. But ultimately, it was funny talking with and listening to our players. Like, the one thing they wanted to improve on was that right there, was discipline, self-discipline, and team discipline. So we put some things in place as soon as I took the job over, to help encourage, I'll say, people to make sure that where they need to be on time. But it has to be little things, as you guys know. Like, it has to be, all right, then if we're on study hall at 8 o'clock, if you're not there at 8 and not early, then there has to be consequences, and you have to build it from the inside out. If not, you just can't be disciplined on game days. So helping develop that at a very fast rate, because you look at some of the best teams in the country and they're almost always penalty free. And the ones that I can't stand are personal fouls and pre-snap. If you accidentally hold someone, cool. That's football. You'll get through that. But we will do a huge job as far as limiting pre-snap and personal fouls. That'll be in the game plan. Anything else we're not good at that I need to know?
I got one more. I want to ask about situational defense. Something that always kind of stood out to me watching New Mexico State, watching their defense last year, was when third and fourth down came around later on in the game. It just seems like they always made a play. It seems like they always stepped up and did something. How do you establish that with the defense? How do you get that mentality into them that they step up on those situational plays?
That is a phenomenal question. How do you get your guys ready for the big moment, essentially, right? So for me, that it goes right to football IQ. One thing that I love doing, we have a unit meeting every single day on defense, right? And so all of my position coaches have something, whether it's block destruction, turnover, tackling, pursuit. We speak on everything, and then I speak on football IQ. What we try to do and how we accelerate winning and on our defense is that if one guy makes a mistake, you will not see that mistake again, right? And we handle it for the whole team, whether it's a D tackle jumping off sides on 3rd and 2. What do you think they're going to do on 3rd and 2, right? No one else needs to have that learning lesson. So we do capitalize, I think, with our teachers, but that goes back to having the football players that want to listen as well, and understanding situations, because listen, teams lose more football games than they win. And I think you guys probably believe that just watching football. So how can we make sure when the time gets big, our players know how to handle that situations, right? And prepared, right? And are staying ahead of the chains. So that's a great question, but that comes with a lot of hours in this room right here, right where you're sitting. Anything else? Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming, and enjoy the time with the players. You'll love them.
Thanks, Coach.